Well, the season one finale concluded, and to say that it is a game changer a little bit going into season two would be an understatement, if you will. It definitely would be an understatement because it has changed. There is no doubt. And when I look at what potentially season two is going to bring us, it definitely is going to be relying on a lot of time travel. And what I mean by a lot of time travel, I'm talking along the lines of the fact that you're going to have events happening in the future and in the past. And the way they've done this is kind of unique in their own kind of way because now you have whatever happens in the past potentially affecting the future, and whatever happens in the future potentially, I should say, and essentially affecting its future, that precedes it. And what I mean is this. Now, I have basically, there is a spoiler article from IGN in my hands. And this is what they said, and I quote here. This is what they said, and I quote, the X-Men save the world again. They put the word again in parentheses. They said this, and I quote, things are looking pretty bleak for humanity in the climax of the finale. Though Professor Xavier hijacks Magneto's mind and forces him to undo the damage caused by his EMP attack, humanity faces certain extinction after Bastion turns Asteroid M into a massive projectile. Now intent on wiping out humanity rather than ushering in its salvation, Bastion is essentially borrowing a page from Ultron's playbook in 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron. Bastion himself is ultimately destroyed, rebuffering Cyclops' act of compassion and being sucked into the black hole created by Asteroid M's damaged core. But Magneto spares humanity the same fate suffered by the dinosaurs when he awakens just in time to stop Asteroid M from plummeting to the surface and returns it to the surface. Plummeting to the surface and returning it to the surface where it promptly explodes. Magneto and the X-Men are feared dead. More on that in a moment. Now, I basically said in my video, and I stayed by my statement in my Topics on My Mind yesterday, my live stream, I said that Professor X would do something with his mind to either erase what has happened from the minds of everyone affected, or he would force some kind of time travel issue to kind of erase what has happened from happening. Well, he kind of does this by basically convincing Magneto, don't do this EMP attack because this is not who you're trying to be. This is what you used to be. So, yeah, basically, Charles uses his power to say, look, don't do this or else you're going to be worse than what is really causing this, if you know what I mean. Now, continuing on, it says, and I quote, the last-minute save seems to set the tone for human-mutant relations heading into Season 2. While Bastion succeeded in discrediting the X-Men and exposing the lie about Xavier's death, now world leaders watched as the X-Men and Magneto saved them from certain doom. Anti-mutant hysteria is still on the rise, hence the radio broadcast referring to the rise in popularity of Friends of Humanity founder turned politician, Graydon Creed. But humans have also been reminded that the X-Men are willing to throw down their lives in defense of those who hate and fear them. The problem is that there are currently no X-Men in place to promote Xavier's dream. That's a problem Forge intends to solve, and he's got some unexpected help from Bishop, who returns from his sojourn in the future with a surprising revelation. Now, what that revelation is, we'll get into that in a moment. Now, they do highlight some cameos, some Marvel cameos. And these are the cameos. And they quote by saying, "The world may not have X-Men at the moment, but Episode 10's many superhero cameos prove that there are still plenty of costume heroes left to defend humanity. Here's a quick rundown of everyone, of everyone we see in the finale. We see Captain America, Iron Man, Black Panther, that is T'Chaka, not T'Challa, Daredevil, Cloak and Dagger, Doctor Strange, Silver Samurai, Omega Red, Dawnstar, Peter Parker, Mary Jane Watson." So I guess Mary Jane's back. There's the question of what we were wondering at the end of Spider-Man 94, the original Spider-Man animated series. Mary Jane's back. Mary Jane Watson's back. Cool. Now, they do say, additionally, former showrunner Bo DiMaio has suggested that many heroes off-world during the events of Tolerance is Extinction, dealing with the worsening crisis as the Shi'ar and Kree empires wage war on each other. That's likely why we don't see Avengers like Thor alongside Captain America and Iron Man. Now, that's really interesting to bring that all up, because a lot of people are wondering, okay, will we see any more Marvel heroes? And apparently we're going to see them in Season 2. How they're brought in, how they're presented, what their agenda will be, we don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see. Continuing on, they state, "Saved by time travel." This is the next headline. "In the final scenes of Episode 10, we learned that Magneto and the X-Men didn't perish in Asteroid M's implosion. Instead, they were dragged across time. Most of them have emerged 5,000 years in the past in ancient Egypt, while Cyclops and Jean Grey, meanwhile, have traveled 2,000 years into the future. Why did the X-Men time travel? One possibility is that an outside force saved them, perhaps some powerful Marvel character wanting to spare the X-Men, and while also needing them to set things right in both the distant past and the far future. The Watcher, perhaps? Okay, now that's a possibility. Good possibility. We could get the Watcher. We never really... we saw a cameo of the Watcher in the Phoenix saga, right? So it makes sense we see him full on here. Now they continue on, and I quote, "However, it's more likely this salvation by time travel was pure happenstance. Earlier in the finale, we see Bastion absorb Cable's techno-organic arm into his body. The arm still holds Cable's time band when it's absorbed, suggesting Bastion integrated its time travel function into his body. And when Bastion is destroyed in Asteroid M's core, his body may rip open holes in time that the X-Men and Magneto are dragged into. It's worth pointing out that," okay, let me read you that. It says, and I quote, "It's worth pointing out that this means Cable is currently stranded in the present. This may be paving the way for Cable to spearhead the creation of X-Force, a more militant alternative to the X-Men. That could be a plot point in Season 2, with Cable doing his best to fill the void left by the X-Men." Okay, continuing on. Meeting Apocalypse in Ancient Egypt. Magneto and one faction of the X-Men, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, and Xavier, are thrust back in time, landing in ancient Egypt in the year 3000. So when they put Rogue's name in there as a fraction of the X-Men, that kind of means she is back on the team. I think basically as we move forward in Season 2, and this time travel thing being the main plot point, I guarantee what's going to happen is she's going to basically be back on the team. Because again, like I said in my live stream, no fans are going to like if you turn her villain. No, she is a good person, good guy, good gal, hero, no matter what, people look at. But anyway, it says Magneto and one fraction of the X-Men, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, and Xavier are thrust backwards in time, landing in Egypt in the year 3000. 3000 BC, that is. 3000 BC. I just had to read that there. I do apologize for the pause there. But let me reread that. It states, Magneto and one faction of the X-Men, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Beast, and Xavier are thrust backward in time, landing in Egypt in the year 3000 BC. There they encounter a lone warrior battling against several foes. After rescuing the warrior, they learn his name, En-Sabah-Nur. Comic book fans will recognize this figure as a young Apocalypse. The En-Sabah-Nur name loosely translates to the first one, denoting the fact that this ancient being is one of the world's very first mutants. Apocalypse was the main villain of several key stories in the original X-Men the Animated Series, but that show never delved very deeply into his origins. That clearly is about to change in X-Men 97. Now, what's funny about that is X-Men Evolution did dive a little bit into his origins, but not the show that preceded it. So they're obviously taking inspiration from Age of Apocalypse and taking inspiration from X-Men Evolution. The final shot in the Egyptian sequence shows a massive and oddly futuristic temple in the background. In the comics, Apocalypse origin story sees him battle the pharaoh Rama-Tut, a time traveler who uses his advanced technology to lord over the ancient Egyptians. Apocalypse eventually drives Rama-Tut out of the past and harnesses the technology for himself, becoming the all-powerful mutant tyrant we know him as in the present. And they show an example of the comic book called The Rise of Apocalypse. So they're taking inspiration from Age of Apocalypse, Rise of Apocalypse, and from what they did in X-Men Evolution, in my opinion. Sidebar. They put a sidebar here. They say, sidebar, dash. We'd be remiss if we didn't point out that Rama-Tut is one of the many identities of Kang the Conqueror. Another of those identities, Immortus, appeared in cameo form in Season 4 of X-Men the Animated Series. And if you want to know what that means, basically, so if you watch Beyond Good and Evil, that four-parter, you saw this guy that was kind of like acting all silly, crazy, janitor-like, and basically annoying Bishop. Well, we see him change into somebody else at the end. And that obviously is Immortus. That basically is another variant of Kang. So what they're suggesting here is Rama-Tut, which is another variant of Kang. What they're suggesting is this is all tying into what we're going to get on the big screen eventually. Now, continuing on. Again, let me reread that. Sidebar. We'd be remiss if we didn't point out that Rama-Tut is one of the many identities of Kang the Conqueror. Another one of those identities, Immortus, appeared in cameo form in Season 4 of X-Men the Animated Series. Continuing on, and I quote, "It seems we're going to see the conflict between Apocalypse and Rama-Tut play out in Season 2. Only now the X-Men are fighting alongside En-Sabah-Nur. How will that affect things? Is there a chance the X-Men could alter En-Sabah-Nur's destiny and prevent him from becoming the villain he is in the 20th century? Or does the sight of these mutant heroes help inspire Apocalypse's obsession with, quote, survival of the fittest, unquote, in the first place?" That's a good question. That's a good question because because here's the thing. We've seen stories in many, cartoons, past and present, to where basically people try to go into the past and change things, so that what happened in the past is prevented, but they don't succeed. Or if they do succeed, they succeed but don't get the outcome they were hoping for. I'll give you an example. One of the best two-parters I've ever seen, Sonic Sat-AM Season 2 Blast of the Past. Sally and Sonic went back in time using the Time Stones to try to prevent Robotnik from basically, taking over, from, initiating the coup, if you will. And even though they kind of partially succeeded in, getting the original roboticizer plans that would help them with their de-roboticizer and prevent Rosie, the nanny, from being roboticized when they were kids, unfortunately, they couldn't, achieve the ultimate goal that they had. They changed some things for the better, but not everything, not what they intended. Because basically things are meant to happen. Remember what Cable said in, part 1 or part 2? He said basically things have to, events have to occur as they are. Or at least, that's, what he states here at the moment. But we'll see. We shall see. Now, continuing on. They state, and I quote, next headline. Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Clan Askana. While some of the X-Men find themselves far in the past, Cyclops and Jean Grey have instead traveled to the far-flung year of 3060 AD. There they encounter a group called Clan Askan, led by the mysterious Mother Askan. Mother Askan's true identity is a pretty big reveal, but we won't spoil that here. You got to see it for yourself, apparently. You got to see it for yourself. For now, what matters is that Scott and Jean come face to face with a younger version of Nathan Summers. Clan Askanan are the ones who rescued baby Nathan when he was lost in time and raised him to become a time-traveling freedom fighter. In a kind of twist of fate, Scott and Jean are now given the chance to become parents to young Nathan, regaining some of the time they lost with their son. This draws on the 1994 comic series, The Adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix. In the comic, Scott and Jean's psychic forms were brought into the future to raise Nathan. Here they arrived in the flesh. Okay. Let's see. Clan Askins are the main form of resistance in a world dominated by apocalypse. Therefore, it stands to reason that both groups of time-displaced X-Men are connected by one overarching apocalypse-centric storyline. Expect the conflict with Apocalypse to play a major part in Season 2, even as the series sets other important plans in motion. What happened to Wolverine and the other X-Men? X-Men 10 reveals the fates of many of the X-Men who were trapped aboard Asteroid M, but not all of them. Wolverine, Storm, and Morph are still MIA, with no indication of where or when they might be. We're going to go out on a limb and assume that the three didn't die aboard Asteroid M. Wolverine and Storm in particular are too popular to simply write out of the picture like that. Presumably, the three were also saved by the power of time travel. It's a question as to when in the timeline they emerged. Wherever Wolverine finds himself, he's going to have to deal with the trauma of having the antimaterium ripped from his bones, as we've seen in episode 10. And, okay, let me try. This is one injury even his healing factor is having trouble containing. Assuming the show follows the examples of the comics, Logan will eventually regain consciousness, but learn that his healing factor has shortened itself out. He'll also discover that he has bone claws underneath his adamantium. If Season 2 is anything like the comics, Logan will take a break from the X-Men to recover physically and psychologically and come into conflict with villains like Lady Deathstrike and Cyber. Depending on when and where Logan is right now, he may have no choice but to become a wandering hero. The real question is whether Storm and Morph are with him, or if they were dragged into their own ports in time. The fate of these three X-Men is perhaps the show's biggest mystery heading into Season 2. And that's a good question. Now, a lot of people look at Wolverine being displaced, and they're going to say to themselves, we bet that's the Wolverine in Deadpool, or at least one of the Wolverines in Deadpool and Wolverine. Because in a way, it would make sense. in a way, it would make sense that, okay, you have a displaced Wolverine. You have this storyline that he failed his world. So what better connection could you have than the Wolverine that we might see throughout Deadpool and Wolverine being the one from X-Men 97? It's just a possibility, in my opinion. Just a possibility. Now, continuing on. X-Men 97's post-credit scene explained. In true Marvel fashion, X-Men 97 ends its first season with a post-credit scene setting up a future storyline. Here we see Apocalypse on Genosha mourning the loss of so many mutants in Bastion's attack. Apocalypse muses, quote, "so much pain, so much death," while holding up one of Gambit's playing cards. The implication here seems to be that Apocalypse plans on resurrecting Gambit as his horseman of death. That's sometimes been a convenient way of resurrecting dead mutants in the comics, thanks to Apocalypse's advanced... Okay, let me reread that. It says, the implication here seems to be that Apocalypse plans on resurrecting Gambit as his horseman of death. That's sometimes been a convenient way of resurrecting dead mutants in the comics, thanks to Apocalypse's advanced celestial technology. Easy for me to say. Apocalypse's advanced celestial technology. Celestial. That's what I was trying to say. At this point, it's clear that all roads lead to Apocalypse in Season 2. This long-running villain is active in the past, the future, and now even the present. Present-day Apocalypse is resurfacing following his resurrection in Season 5 of X-Men the Animated Series, and he's recruiting mutants to become his horsemen. Who else will join his cause? Could this be how Wolverine gets his adamantium back, as it happened in the comics? Could Apocalypse recruit human superheroes as well as mutants? Anything is possible when this powerful and immortal villain is at the forefront of the series. We'll find out. We will find out how past, present, and future connect when the series returns, likely in 2025 or sooner. But yeah, Season 10, the final episode, Season 1, Episode 10, the finale, definitely a big change. Definitely a big change here. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that this is going to have people talking and speculating for who knows how long going forward. And why do I say that, you might ask? Well, it's real simple. It's real simple. It's mainly because now you got to wonder how this all connects. How this is all going to, connect together, as one story. Like, okay, you got, because here's the thing, you got Jean and Cyclops in the future, with this clan Askinen, or whatever they're called, who's raising a young Nathan Summers, a.k.a. Cable. You have them in the future, in 3060 AD. Well, you have the other X-Men, along with Magneto, in 3000 BC, when we first see the origins of Apocalypse. And now you got Apocalypse right in the middle. So obviously it's very apocalyptic-centric, as they put it, when it comes to what we're going to get in Season 2. And I guarantee you this. Whatever happens in Season 2, here's the thing that Kevin Feige likes to do with us. He likes to really tease us with a lot of stuff, right? He likes to tease us when he, has the right material and things are done correctly. He likes to tease us. Well, apparently he's going to have fun here because there has been indication, there has been hints that X-Men 97 is a part of the multiverse of the MCU. So if it's a part of the multiverse of the MCU, that would explain why we're having this situation occur as we speak. And why I even speculated, and I'm sure others will speculate, that the Wolverine we see, or at least one of them, maybe the main Wolverine we see along with Deadpool in the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine movie, is the one that gets lost in time, from X-Men 97. I would not be surprised if that has some truth to it. Because if you're going to even connect an animated series to the multiverse saga of the MCU in these current phases, that's going to lead us to the Kang Dynasty, if that's still going to be what it's called for Avengers 5, and then lead us from there to the next Avengers, which will be Secret Wars. If you're going to use X-Men 97 to take part in that, then it only makes sense that you go down this route with a character like Wolverine, as well as Storm and, Morph and stuff. It only makes sense. It only makes sense, if you will. Now, with that said, I admit I was wrong. When it came to, thinking where they might go. I was kind of right when I said Xavier would use his power, and he did, to kind of basically get Magnus to snap out of it and realize what he was doing. And I think I'm also going to be right by the fact that we're not going to have Rogue go totally evil, okay? I mean, if they're going to bring Gambit back as a Horseman of Death, which of course will basically get him resurrected or whatever, and he gets back to normal, which we know will happen, she ain't going to go bad. She ain't going to go bad and everything. She's just going to probably, knowing Rogue, knowing how they like to play around with these two, she's just probably going to use her glove hand and go smack on his face and remind him what he did and basically say, don't ever pull a stunt like that again. I could probably see them doing that, as a comedic relief, maybe. But again, I don't see them turning her full evil, because what they're dealing with her character is just her grief, her anger, the fact that she lost the man she loves, due to his sacrifice. But now she's probably realizing, hey, it's not Xavier's fault this happened. It's Bastion's fault. It was his fault and everything. So what do I see happening in season 2? Well, one, if we got all these heroes and characters from other Marvel properties cameoing and showing up, it only makes sense, in my opinion, that what season 2 is going to lead us towards is a reset. That's what it's going to lead us towards. Now, I thought they would reset it by having, Cable or somebody go back in time and prevent Charles from being attacked by Gyrich. That didn't happen. But what I see happening is things getting reset with Apocalypse being denied his power in the past. What I see happening is you're going to have the X-Men in the past, prevent, Apocalypse from getting his power. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, I could be wrong. Like I said earlier, with the example of Sonic and Sally, basically, they were kind of successful, but not totally, in the manner that they wanted to be in Blast to the Past. Because, obviously they, with Sonic thinking more about chili dogs than anything, it didn't help them, if you will. Because basically the plan originally was to go back in time and have maybe weeks, if not months, to plan before the whole coup happened. And thus they could prevent it. But anyway, they didn't succeed the way they wanted, but they came close. And that's all that matters. Because they're realizing, at least Sally realizes, that things just have to be the way they are, and only they in the present, knowing what they've known from the past, can prevent Robotnik from succeeding anymore. But again, it feels like what they're setting up here is a reset, in my opinion, of, basically things changing. Like either they kind of prevent Apocalypse from being the total tyrant he is, but he still becomes who he is, but they changed things enough to where certain events that occurred throughout the X-Men animated series never occur. Like, basically, Magneto doesn't become who he is. You know, Gambit doesn't die. Genosha doesn't get destroyed. All these events are going to change. They're going to change. And at the center of it, you have Bishop, you have Forge, and you have Cable, all with time-traveling experience, mostly Bishop and Cable. It's going to definitely make things very interesting. But my opinion is I'm going to stick by what I said I thought was going to be the result here in Season 1's finale, which I now think is going to be used to some extent in Season 2's finale, and that's things are going to be reset. Things are going to be, altered. Certain events that cause trouble and everything for the X-Men are going to be changed or prevented from happening. Certain characters will not die, and things will go back to the way they were. But what's going to happen, though, is it's going to open up the door for the X-Men to be in the MCU. So with the reset and everything that's going to occur, it also will open up the door for them to have entry after the reset into the MCU. Because again, going back to what I said, Kevin Feige likes to tease us. He likes to throw little Easter eggs and hints. So it makes sense if you're going to have a variation of Kang in the second season, of X-Men, the animated, of X-Men 97, then it makes sense that there's a connecting to the whole MCU phase and all that. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a reset, but that reset's going to put the X-Men into the current MCU we all know of. That's what it's going to do. Same thing with the Fantastic Four movie next year, which a lot of people are speculating on. Whatever happens at the end of that movie is going to put the Fantastic Four of that alternate universe into the MCU universe. So that's what I think is going to happen. The X-Men are going to reset things because of all the positions they're in, throughout time right now. They're going to reset things, to the point that certain events that did happen will not happen. And basically, by resetting things will be as they were, except the catch is they will now be in a New York and in a world that's part of the MCU, just like the Fantastic Four will be at the end of their film. Because how are you going to bring this all together? That's going to be the question, And I think those are the only ways. But those are just my opinions. I got to give credit, shout out to IGN for the article they made, on this. But let me know what you think is going to happen in Season 2. Do you think we will get a reset because of what's going on now? Do you think we will get a reset? Do you think the Wolverine that's been displaced possibly through time in reality is the Wolverine we see in Deadpool and Wolverine, at least the main one maybe? And do you think the reset is going to cause the X-Men of X-Men 97 to not only make sure certain events are altered or never happen, but also, bring them home, but bring them to a home that's now set in the MCU? Let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere, which, by the way, super chats are open if you want to donate in the live chat. It would be greatly appreciated. And super thanks are also open as well during the premiere and afterwards when you watch the video. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you see the overending arcing result of all this when it's all said and done in Season 2? And what did you think of Season 1 overall? Let me know. And until then, I am out.